in a recent study from the Journal of Nature, it actually reviewed many other studies. It was a meta-analysis to see what types of exercises used with patients who have fibromyalgia, and they listed aerobic exercise, strength training, and stretching. In all types of exercises that were reviewed showed benefits in reduction of pain, improving depression, and overall quality of life. Could you provide examples of each type and how a patient or your client can incorporate it as a physical activity?
Sure. I will say one thing. If you look at those categories, I think you mentioned strength training, you mentioned stretching, and you mentioned aerobic exercise. If you look at all three of those exercise categories, all of them are a form of resistance training. So if you think about the role of muscle in your body, which is kind of what I started with talking about and what has been the scope of my work really, muscles are the direct communicators with your central nervous system. They are going to be what we call the display units of the body. They actually react to all types of stress, whether they're chemical stress, physical stress, or chemical stress. And they're a huge part of what make up our body and help us to move. They are the force producers in our body. So if I take something like cardiovascular seems to be these types of resistance training exercises that we can do for a long period of time with low levels of resistance, with a more of a, I would say, a speedier execution of movement. And it seems to be that exercise is all about time. Like we have to do something for 20 minutes, otherwise it doesn't become cardiovascular. But I'm going to say one thing that, especially when you're dealing with someone that's overweight, when you're dealing with something with a lot of excess load on the body, exercise like walking, like cycling, getting Peloton is really popular now. If I have muscle weakness, if muscles are not able to contract efficiently for long periods of time, and let's say that my joint mechanics are not safe, they're not producing good force, then doing a lot of repetitions like walking for 20 minutes might actually induce pain, right? So then I look at this type of exercise called resistance training. So we always think resistance training means pick up weights. Well, if I'm riding a bike, the bike is causing resistance against my body. If I'm running down the street, maybe the resistance is picking up my body mass and moving it at a specific speed and using the friction forces from the road, or maybe the elements of the weather that's going on outside. When I have a lot of, going back to the whole Biggest Loser thing the example that I gave, if I have a lot of weight on my body, picking up my leg or raising my arm may be enough weight. We don't seem to call that resistance training. When someone tries to stand up, it's that maybe you're a sedentary person and you're dealing with some weight challenges. Everybody, I'm sure a lot of your patients have told you, it hurts when I go from sitting to standing, or when I'm sitting for a long period of time and I try to go to stand up, my back hurts. Well, think about let's say that person was 180 pounds, let's just say. They're picking up 185 pounds at their hip, knee, ankle, and lower back. So that is resistance training. So I'm going to say that the first place that we want to start is what I call owning your body, understanding that learning how to move your own body mass and how your body moves. Like, how does my left shoulder feel? How does my right shoulder feel? How tight am I on one side of my body than the other? That's really where exercise needs to start. When we can safely move our body mass, when we can deal with our body mass and we're not continuously trying, if you ever watch people like plop in the chair, that's kind of like overcoming your body mass, right? Your body mass is winning there. When we can learn how to sit in the chair properly over a period of time, then that's going to maybe be appropriate to add load to the body. But then we also have this other thing called flexibility training. Well, if you think about it, muscles really don't stretch. Muscles attach from one bone to the other, and their job is to create tension. So when someone is chronically tight, we say that they need to experience an exercise program that involves stretching, Many times the reason that someone is tight is a protective mechanism because muscles are weak and your body is trying to keep you from using them. So everything that you just discussed in that study is all a resistance training scenario. When muscles become weak, we experience more pain. We cannot sustain contractions for a long period of time. We will experience what we call chronic tightness. We'll experience loss of balance. So any type of exercise that we do, even if it's, like I said, standing up and sitting down, raising your arm up and over, lifting your leg when you're sitting in a seat, all of that is going to utilize your heart. It's going to utilize your joints. And as your muscles get stronger, as your body feels more stability, your flexibility will change as well. When your body no longer needs to protect you because you're feeling more neuromuscular integrity, you'll experience less tightness. So I think it's important that people understand that, what exercise has to look like doesn't necessarily have to be these traditional programs. Right now, it's just about, let's just move. Let's just use your body a little bit and let's just feel what it's like to be in your body for the first time.
It's so true. Just moving every day, any movement, just don't sit and lay all day, and it helps. The patients that I see in my clinic who are successful with managing fibromyalgia symptoms all credit exercise, and they all may be different. Somebody may use yoga, somebody may swear by pool exercise or aquatic aerobics, or they may be into walking, just walking the dog. My exercise is daily walk with the dog. That's my type of exercise. And it makes me feel better. And I can tell you, if the days that I don't want to walk, when I don't get to walk because it's too rainy or it's too many things going on, or it's whatever, I feel less alert. I feel more tired. I feel more irritable. So I can see in my daily life, whatever little exercise I do get to do helps me tremendously. If you have a client and the client comes and says, my doctor said I need to have low to moderately intense exercise because it's the best for fibromyalgia, what is it? And why do doctors tell their patients to do that?
Well, I think it's important, and you being a physician yourself, I'm sure, you take an oath of do no harm, just as fitness professionals do. And so our mindset is always, I don't want my client to hurt. I don't want my patient to hurt. I want to make sure that I tell them to be gentle with themselves. And I do think that's great advice in the beginning. And to your point about, walking or finding an exercise that really feels good for your body, everyone needs an entry point, a way to walk through the door, something that gets them moving. Whatever that is that gets you excited. I know right now a lot of my clients are into this pickleball. I've never played it. I have no interest in playing pickleball, but for some reason pickleball has become the thing. Have you noticed this?
Yes.
And I've always asked my clients, what is it about pickleball that you like? And I've seen clients that were formerly sedentary love this pickleball. Well, they love it because their friends go. They love it because they don't have to move as much. The racket doesn't weigh as much. I've heard these things. I've heard that the ball's smaller. I've heard that the court is smaller. Maybe it's at a time of day that they enjoy. Maybe it's something that their neighborhood has gotten involved into. And so I'm always like, great, do that pickleball. Whatever it is that gets you moving is going to be the first step. And I think that that's where it becomes this idea of, let's just get you moving. If this thing is going to get you moving, I'm all for it. I'm in 100%. Let's start doing that. When you do that activity for a period of time, let's say that pickleball was the thing that got me going. And I started to recognize, like you said, when I don't do this thing, I don't feel as alert. I don't feel as able to think through my day. My body starts to ache. This is the beginning of creating the exercise habit. So whatever that is that get you started, stay consistent. And if you stay consistent, what will happen? you will get to the point naturally that you will want to do more because your body will start to get strong. If you ever look at a rock and let's say I took a rock and I stuck it under a drip of water, over time, the water will wear the rock down in that area. So it's always about force over time. So your body will change over time if you stay consistent. So you're not going to stay consistent on something that you don't enjoy. You're not going to stay consistent on something that hurts. So when you find that thing that makes you get consistent, you will naturally, by default, want to do more, and you'll seek out training. You'll talk to your friends. You'll maybe talk to your physician. Maybe you'll find a trainer. Maybe by going to your pickleball class, someone will talk about something else and you'll want to participate in that. And I have seen this so many times throughout my years in health and fitness. People begin with something that they enjoyed, and then you look at them 5 years later and now they're full on exercising all the time and they've completely changed their body. But one message I want to give to your viewers is it's never too late. I know people think to themselves, I'm older, I'm this, it's too late, I'll never be back where I was, I'll always be overweight, everyone in my family's overweight, so I'm going to be overweight too. None of that's true. You can change your body. I've seen people in their 80s start moving and they completely change their bodies. Your bones are always, they're alive. They're always under the influence of gravity. That's why we are disintegrated. So you just got to make the choice. Do I want to age with dependence on other people, or do I want to age with independence? And the quicker you get started, the more you can start slowly aging versus maybe your friends are quickly aging. You either decide I'm going to either age fast or I'm going to age slow.
Yes, we're all going to age, and we'll have a limited amount of resource and time. Now, you are a very seasoned yoga instructor, and you not only teach your clients yoga, you actually educate the other yoga teachers on how to teach yoga. So if someone has chronic pain or fibro, will yoga benefit them, and why? I know that Mayo Clinic recommends about 30 minutes of yoga exercise, type of exercise per day. And within 2 weeks, there's improvement in pain. So tell me more about yoga and how patients who never done yoga can start incorporating that into their life.
Wow, that's a big, yoga, the word yoga is...
you just light up. You start glowing. As soon as I said yoga, you just light up and have a big smile on your face.
I think for my background, when I got into yoga, I think I told you in the beginning of this podcast, I was really over exercising. I developed an eating disorder. I can remember getting up in the morning and having to take leave to walk to the bathroom. And I was in orthotics all the time and I was chronically in pain. I remember just getting up and wishing that people didn't show up to my class because I hurt so much. And when someone told me to start doing yoga, I remember thinking that I was going to be just as successful in yoga as I was in everything else I thought I was successful in. And it was one of the hardest things that I tried because it was the first time that I actually had to slow down and pay attention to myself. I had never learned about control ever in my life. Everything in exercise for me was move this weight from point A to point B, or get on this bike and cause these pedals to move for this period of time. It was always sort of like, I always say this in my lectures, it was sort of like exercise was, I was using my body to do exercise in a way that it was sort of like being used. It was like my needs in my body were going offline and I was just focused on the task at hand. The body was irrelevant. Didn't matter, think about cardio. It doesn't matter if I'm feeling fatigue, I got to get to 20 minutes, so I'm just going to push through it. Or, it doesn't matter if my form is sloppy, I just got to move this weight. When I started to do yoga, everything changed because I realized that exercise is more about me using my body in a way to make it better. So I think that those articles that come out, they're yoga's everywhere. And I don't know if it's so much now as it was about a decade ago, but yoga is such a big word. And there's so many things to say about what yoga means to people. There's so many different types of yoga, schools of yoga. methodologies of yoga, approaches to yoga. But in a nutshell, yoga should be done in a way that teaches you about your body, period. It teaches you about control. One of the things that I like, and I do a specific type of yoga, I don't believe in passive stretching. I still believe in it. Muscles don't stretch. So many people think that yoga is going to improve their flexibility if they fall into these poses. And many people approach yoga like, I've got to force myself to get into this pose like the picture or the book says. And they'll follow the directions in the book, and they'll try to do these yoga practices. That is like the biggest pet peeve of mine. I always tell my students in my teacher training, yoga is a bunch of poses that somebody handed down thousands and thousands of years ago. And the original intention of yoga was as a doorway to meditation, which is basically knowledge of the self, which really is what we all need in our society right now, is knowledge of ourselves. How do we stand out? What are our strengths? How does my body move? What are my unique talents? How is my hip joint designed? What does my genetics say? Learning how to explore how your individual body works. So these poses are all, I call them templates. It's like, yeah, this person in this practice moved this way. Great. What does my body do? I may never move into this posture, but I can figure out a way to use that template to serve my body. So yoga is no shoes, no speed, no excess load, moving into a positions and sustaining a muscle contraction while breathing and paying attention to how your body responds. What a great way to approach exercise, right?
And you can do it anywhere, right? You can do it at home, you can do it in a gym, you can do it on a beach,
absolutely.
You can do it on a plane.
Absolutely. And some people approach yoga like you would a gym rat. They look at it as like this ego-centered, I got to go in here and do this practice and get on my fancy smancy mat and pull myself into all these poses. And then there are other people that are doing lunges in a gym and actually doing yoga. Yoga is about learning about yourself. And when you don't learn about yourself, that's where injuries in yoga can happen. And that's why I hate those kind of studies, because they kind of say that, you know, every yoga is right and every yoga is going to help you. And that's not true. I've had people in my office before that could get into every pose and they were hyper flexible, and they've had everybody say, oh, you're so good at yoga, but they hurt all over because they've never learned the strength aspect of yoga. I've had other people that were extremely tight, chronic pain. They start doing yoga and they start cranking themselves thinking that they're going to get into poses. That happened to me. I had a teacher adjust me and I tore a meniscus in my knee in the adjustment. And that was horrible. So yoga will teach you the lessons that you want to learn, but it's really an exploration of the self.
So when, I teach about chronic pain and mindfulness, feeling of safety, how to regulate the fear pain cycle, and how to actually use your mind to help your pain through mindfulness and meditation and self-exploration. So it plays really well into the yoga teachings. So how do you see patients who have chronic pain, who never use mindfulness, they never meditated, how they can incorporate yoga as exercise and yoga as mindfulness technique to help their pain?
That's a great question. And I think it's, again, so wonderful the work that you're doing. I hope that people understand, and I've referred so many people to your podcast. I mean, you have such a wealth of knowledge, and I have to give you some kudos, Dr. Pinkston, because not all doctors are as open-minded as you. And some of these opening up your mind to holistic practices and not just sticking with the Western model. I think that's why you are so successful, not only in this podcast, but I don't know if any of your viewers understand, you are also, I've worked with many of your patients that you sent my way, and they all sing your praises. So that's awesome. But at any rate, yes, people say, I don't meditate. I say, yes, you do. Because if anyone's ever gotten in their car and driven to work, and suddenly they're in the parking lot and they don't remember leaving the house, and suddenly they're in the parking lot, you just went through a meditation because you were just sort of had your mind going somewhere else. And you were focused on your breathing, maybe at that time, maybe you were focused on the road. That is meditation. If anyone's ever gone to the beach and just sat and looked at the waves, that's meditation. Yoga is a formal way to learn how to get in touch with yourself. But, for many, many people, the act of moving in accordance to how you're breathing, like, so I'm going to say, inhale, arms up, exhale, arms down. Just that little exercise starts to move into that mindset of, oh, I'm breathing. I wasn't even aware that I was breathing. Because if you think about it, the breath is something that's always with you. And we just sort of, if someone's not breathing, they're dead or they're having problems, but we don't notice it. We don't notice ourselves breathing. But when someone tells you to pay attention to your breathing or to somehow regulate your breathing in a specific way, that's the beginning of yoga, because you're paying attention on purpose. As John Kabat-Zinn once said, meditation is, or mindfulness is, paying attention on purpose. When you're moving into a posture in yoga, and there's a lot of studies that have been done according to when you're breathing heavily and when your mind is having to think of something complex, like if someone's telling you, how to engage your shoulders and how you sit up straight and how you tighten your abs and how you're pushing your feet into the floor and where your alignment is in your body. When you have to think of something like that, you're not thinking about all the tasks that you have to do for the rest of your day. You're not thinking about your pain at that time. You're not thinking about the heat in the room. You're not thinking about anything but what's going on in your body. And when you bring the mind inward like that, that is a process that we as yoga instructors say can actually translate off the mat too. You can actually find yourself through that practice of learning how to sit with your body and just think about how you're sitting or how you're standing. Let's just talk about how we're standing. That is actually a yoga pose, just standing. It's called mountain pose. Well, you will find that will translate when you're in a stressful situation, like when you're sitting in a meeting or sitting on a bus or standing in line. You can use those yogic techniques to manage your stress. And I do believe that is the first step when people start to exercise that people skip. Many trainers, they'll walk in with their client the first time with their little sheet and they'll start putting them on equipment before they ever teach a client on how their body moves by itself. So I've always said that yoga is such a precursor to anything that we would want to do. And it's such a wonderful tool to help people to really understand their bodies.
It's so true. The, awareness of your body as well as awareness of your thoughts. I'm teaching mindfulness. I'm teaching coaching. I'm a certified life coach. I start with awareness of your thinking. You have thoughts that create your feelings that lead into actions. And you're teaching mindfulness through the body awareness and followed through your thought awareness. So it's combination of both your thought and your body awareness that creates the best result for healing. And I feel like a lot of patients who have chronic pain, they don't want to feel their body, and oftentimes they don't want to think about their body at the same time.
Oh, that's so true. That's so true. And that mindfulness training that you're doing is so important. And I know you being a physician and so well-versed on health, the idea that our mind and our body is separate is such a way of thinking of the past. They have done so many studies to understand that through neuropeptides, the discovery of neuropeptides and this whole mind-body medicine that's become popular over the last decade, your mind is truly in every cell in your body. And when you wake up, let's say in the morning, and the first thing that you think of in terms of exercise is how much you hate it, every cell in your body will start to line up to bring that experience to light. By the same token, if you can change your mindset and learn how to not only love exercise, but maybe love yourself a little bit more, the same thing will happen. Every cell in your body will also line up to make that happen. And when you go into that situation with a positive outlook, when you can sort of feel things, when you can learn to love yourself, there's actual scientific proof that you will get more out of the exercise. When you go into a situation with this idea of avoidance of it, like I hate exercise, or I'm here because I have to, my doctor told me, and I don't know why I'm here, and I can't wait for this to get over. They've actually found that your body will not achieve the benefit of that hour that you went with. Not only that, I've actually found as a trainer that if I go into a client session and I don't like the client that I'm working with, or I don't feel that I can help the client, I won't be able to. So this whole idea that we can create and we can manifest, even though that sounds a little new agey, there's actually scientific proof that this actually does take place. So, getting your mind right is so important. So I hope that everyone that's working with Dr. Pinkston takes advantage of that, because, if you have the wrong mindset, you might as well forget it.
I'm studying more and more on our nervous system activation, dysregulation, body-mind connection. Everything in a body and mind is connected. And the polyvagal theory on our nervous system, autonomic nervous system activation, brings up the concept of neuroception, our nervous system having this ability to feel, to sense before our cognition has any input. It's fascinating, but this is why we are so reactive to experiences, why we're so irritable without even thinking about somebody. We can have this irritation about someone or the experience. So when we start our morning hating exercise, hating morning routine, thinking about pain, our body neuroception gets activated. We start feeling this anxiety, the fear, this anticipation of discomfort. So I tell patients, put your heart, hand on your heart, say good morning to yourself in a kind and loving way before you start feeling anxious, before you start hating your experiences or you're dreading your world or the day and, whatever you have to accomplish. Just start slow and bring some awareness that you're loved, you are here, there's a purpose for you every single day. And it makes a difference, even short 5 seconds to say good morning to yourself in a loving way makes a difference in your health.
So true. I often tell clients, I want you to look in the mirror and just say, I love you 3 times a day. And that is so hard to do.
It is hard. It's very
really hard. Yeah, because we spend, I want you to notice all of your viewers, how many times during the day do you cut yourself down? I mean, I've done it in the middle of an exercise routine before, watching myself move in the mirror and going, oh, I'm so fat. Oh, I don't like the way my body looks. Oh, I don't feel like I have it today. You got to switch. It's an immediate switch that you have to make. Your mind is faster than the biggest supercomputer in the world. We could never make anything that Apple or Microsoft could never make anything any more sophisticated than your brain and your central nervous system. And we can change our thoughts so quickly. If as Wayne Dyer always used to say, I used to love listening to Wayne Dyer I still listen to him, even though he's since passed. But he always used the analogy, if I told you right now to think of the most horrific picture in your mind, maybe it was on a movie, everybody has something that pops into their mind immediately. Now, switch it immediately and think of a beautiful rose opening up at dawn with dew on the rose and the sunlight shining on it. You can switch your thoughts that fast and you can immediately change it. So I always tell my clients, this is called mental push-ups. Every time that a negative thought comes back into your mind, you've got to immediately replace it with a positive thought until that becomes the norm. With the whole idea, which I'm sure you teach about, with the whole neuroplasticity, where you can actually, change your thought processes.
Exactly. And, those thoughts, negative thoughts and positive thoughts, and actually thinking about pain or anticipating pain, they can actually document and view it on MRI images. Functional MRIs can pick up the pain centers being activated just by our thoughts, not even our experiences. This is how our brain is bringing up awareness of our bodies, in perception of pain without actually experiencing pain. I think it's just fascinating. And I think the more we're going to learn about neuroplasticity and application to healing, especially chronic pain healing, we're going to see that the old techniques of using pain medications, that work only on a receptor level, it will make a big difference in how quickly and how well people will improve with their chronic pain conditions. It's
Yeah.
just, I think it's emerging, science and emerging field, and we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg right now.
I completely agree. And I think, people need to realize also one thing that you have to do if you're going to change your mindset is you just got to start. I know that a lot of people, like you said, they love to gather information and study things and think about things and plan out things and buy equipment and have all the right mindset. And you can have all this information about the positive thinking of how to get your mind right to exercise. But the only way that you can truly build that mental muscle is by the act of doing it. So it's about not only getting yourself ready to exercise mentally, but you've got to actually put forth the effort. And that effort needs to be consistent, and you have to overcome your fear. There's one thing that one of my teachers used to say to me, David Swenson. I studied quite a bit with him in yoga. And he said, I've oftentimes regretted not practicing, but I've never regretted a practice. So he said, the one thing that I try to do every day is stand on my yoga mat. Because once I stand on my yoga mat, I can do a couple of inhales and exhales, and then I might step back. I might do a couple of downward dogs, and pretty soon I'm in my practice, and I've never regretted it. So that's something that always sticks with me with my clients. It's like, you just got to start. You got to dip your toe in the water sometimes. And until you do, you're not even going to absorb all this wonderful information that comes out in the neuroscience field.